You'll notice how power shifts like desert sands at midnight, when desperation collides with unshakable dignity. They orchestrated their little game with such practiced precision, a masterful dance of hot and cold, designed to break spirits and bend knees. Each move calculated, each silence measured, each absence timed to perfection. They expected tears to water their garden of control, waited for desperation to bloom like dying roses in winter frost. Such artistic cruelty, wasn't it? The way they painted pictures of your worthlessness with invisible brushes made of indifference, each stroke meant to crack that beautiful spirit of yours. But something magnificent happened in their gallery of manipulation. You stood tall, wrapped yourself in the warmth of your own worth, and walked away without a single backward glance. Their carefully crafted spell shattered against the shield of your silence, leaving them holding broken pieces of their own reflection. Beneath moonlight of their calculated absence, strength grows like wildflowers through concrete. Remember those nights when their silence screamed louder than any argument, when their strategic distance felt like thorns against your skin. They played puppeteer with such confidence, pulling strings of guilt and abandonment, expecting you to dance to their tragic rhythm. Each ignored message was a bullet meant to pierce your resolve, every declined call designed to crack your foundation. Their playbook read like a manual for manufacturing desperation, pages filled with tactics to break spirits and harvest tears. But they never expected you to tear up their script and write your own story. In the theater of their manipulation, you chose to exit stage left, leaving them performing to an empty house. The beauty lies in how their weapons of withdrawal transformed into your wings of independence. Each attempt to clip your flight feathers only teaching you new ways to soar. Time writes poetry in spaces where manipulation dies, doesn't it? In those hollow hours they carved with their absence, you discovered the sweetness of your own company. Their strategic silences became your sanctuaries of self-discovery. Their cold shoulders, the catalyst for your internal fire. Watch how they squirm now, these architects of abandonment, as their carefully constructed maze of mind games crumbles. Every unanswered call strengthened your spine. Each ignored message polished your armor until it shone too bright for their shadows to touch. The irony drips like honey from a poisoned hive. In trying to make you smaller, they only revealed the true magnitude of your spirit. Their absence taught you the power of your own presence. Their silence amplified the strength of your voice. Between heartbeats of rejected control, freedom takes root and blooms. Those empty chairs at empty tables tell stories now, don't they? Tales of dinners you didn't attend, parties you didn't crash, doors you didn't knock on. Remember how they waited, expecting tears that never fell, phone calls that never came, pleas that never left your lips. Their stage was set for your grand return, the spotlight ready to illuminate your surrender. But the theater remained dark, the seats collected dust, and their script of your submission turned yellow with age. In trying to direct your desperation, they became trapped in their own production. The beautiful chaos of it all, how their need for your need became a hunger that consumed them instead of you. Stars align differently when one refuses to play puppet to another's ego. Pride becomes poison in mouths that try to swallow your dignity, choking them with the bitter taste of failed manipulation. Their throne of superiority wobbles dangerously when subjects refuse to kneel, crumbles completely when pawns become queens without their permission. Watch them gasp for air in spaces where your begging should have echoed. struggling to breathe in the vacuum of their failed power play. Each day you stood tall, added another crack to their facade. Each moment of your independence, another stone in their castle of control, turning to sand. The collapse wasn't sudden. It was a beautiful, slow-motion destruction of everything they thought they knew about power. Cold wars end differently when one side finds warmth within their own soul. Beneath the frost of their indifference, you built bonfires of self-worth that burned brighter with each passing day. While they waited for you to freeze in the winter of their rejection, you learned to generate your own heat, crafting a summer of self-discovery from the ashes of their abandoned power play. Their Arctic silence met the inferno of your independence, creating storms they never saw coming. Each message they left, unread, became kindling for your inner fire. Every ignored call fueled flames of self-reliance that now burn too hot for their frost to touch. Nature demands an eye for an eye, but forgiveness challenges this ancient arithmetic of pain. Between heartbeats of hurt and healing, something extraordinary unfolds when we choose to break the cycle of retribution. Think about how every wound screams for revenge, how memories of betrayal burn like acid in our veins, demanding justice, craving the sweet nectar of revenge. Yet forgiveness stands as a rebellion against these primal urges, a conscious choice to put down weapons that feel molded to our hands. The battle rages inside, one part of us clutching tightly to justified anger, while another reaches tentatively toward freedom. This internal war leaves scars deeper than the original injury, marking the soul with questions of worthiness and wisdom. Through darkened corridors of memory, forgiveness crawls like morning light beneath a door. Each step toward letting go feels like betraying our own pain, dismissing the validity of our suffering. Society teaches us to demand payment for every debt, to collect interest on emotional loans, to build fortresses from the bricks of past hurts. The ledger of life seems to require perfect balance. Pain given must equal pain returned. But forgiveness tears up this cosmic accounting book, throws calculations to the wind, and dares to suggest that healing might matter more than evening scores. The risk terrifies us because it means stepping into unknown territory without the familiar weight of grievances we've carried so long. Between the cracks of broken trust, new possibilities take root when we water them with forgiveness. Consider the courage it takes to lower shields that protected us, to unwrap fingers from weapons that kept us safe. This isn't the forgiveness of greeting cards and self-help mantras. It's messy, complicated, often painful work that demands more strength than holding on to hate ever did. Some days, letting go feels like betraying ourselves, like handing victory to those who hurt us. Other days, it feels like finally setting down a burden we never realized was crushing us slowly. Shadows of past injuries dance on walls of present moments, making forgiveness seem like madness in a world that preaches payback. Every cell in our body might scream for justice. Every memory demand its pound of flesh. Every wound insist on displaying its scars as evidence for the prosecution. The natural order of things whispers seductive promises of revenge, painting beautiful pictures of satisfaction through retaliation. Yet forgiveness suggests a different path, not an easy one, paved with platitudes and forced smiles, but a warrior's road that requires more courage than any act of vengeance. Dancing on the edge of forgiveness and foolishness, we balance precariously between wisdom and weakness. People often mistake forgiveness for permission, seeing it as a green light for future transgressions, rather than the profound act of self-liberation it truly is. The line between doormat and enlightened soul often blurs in modern interpretations of forgiveness. This isn't about becoming an emotional punching bag or pretending hurt never happened. It's about choosing freedom over the false safety of perpetual anger. The risk lies in how others might interpret our forgiveness, misreading strength as weakness, seeing opportunity in our grace. Beneath moonlight of reflection, forgiveness reveals itself as both gift and gamble. We bet our healing against the possibility of future hurt, wager our peace against potential betrayal. Like a high-wire act performed without a net, true forgiveness requires tremendous trust, not necessarily in others, but in our own ability to survive whatever comes next. Each step toward letting go tests our balance, challenges our resolve, questions our wisdom. The world watches, some waiting for us to fall, others hoping to learn from our courage, all wondering if the risk is worth the potential reward. Time writes strange equations in hearts brave enough to forgive. The mathematics of healing rarely follow logical patterns. Sometimes the deepest wounds heal first, while tiny scratches continue to sting. Forgiveness works its magic in mysterious ways, transforming victim into victor not through revenge, but through release. This transformation costs everything we think keeps us safe: our justified anger, our protective walls, our carefully cultivated resentment. Yet somehow, in surrendering these weapons, we gain something far more valuable than the satisfaction of getting even. Rising suns paint different shadows when forgiveness lights our path. The journey from hurt to healing isn't a straight line, but a spiral, sometimes bringing us back to familiar pain before lifting us to new heights of understanding. Each turn teaches us something new about strength, about grace, about the incredible power of choosing peace over payback. Validation flows through veins like sweetened poison, turning hearts into hungry beasts that dance to dealers' tunes. These emotional drug lords understand the game perfectly. First comes the rush of praise, flowing free like honey from poisoned hives. They shower you with compliments, recognition, and that intoxicating feeling of being seen, understood, valued. Each dose of validation hits your bloodstream like pure ecstasy, lighting up neural pathways until you're floating on clouds of artificial worth. But just when euphoria peaks, when you're swimming in the warmth of their approval, they begin their calculated withdrawal, and the real game begins. Invisible strings tighten around hungry souls, desperate for their next fix of validation. Simple texts become rare treasures. Casual compliments transform into precious gems. Attention morphs into a currency more valuable than gold. Like master puppeteers, they watch you dance to their erratic rhythm of give and take. Your phone becomes both salvation and torture device. Each notification brings potential relief. Each silence feeds the growing hunger. They study your desperation with clinical precision, noting how your behavior changes as withdrawal symptoms set in. The psychology mirrors any addiction. Pleasure, dependence, withdrawal, desperation, repeat. Beneath glittering surfaces of seemingly innocent relationships, dealers of emotional heroin weave their webs. They understand that human connection isn't your real craving. It's the high of external validation that keeps you coming back. Each "you're amazing" becomes a hit. Every "I'm proud of you" acts as another dose of their carefully measured drug. The trap springs slowly, almost beautifully, as they establish themselves as your primary source of emotional sustenance. Other relationships fade like stars at dawn, while their influence grows stronger, until their approval becomes the sun your world revolves around. Between heartbeats of manufactured highs and orchestrated lows, clarity fights through fog of addiction. Their game works like precision clockwork, first establishing themselves as the ultimate source of good feelings, then introducing scarcity to drive up demand. Your self-worth becomes a commodity they control, dispensing or withholding at will to maximize your dependence. Watch how they carefully measure doses of attention, calculating exactly how much validation to give and withdraw to keep you hooked, without completely breaking your spirit. The dealer always ensures their supply seems endless, while making access increasingly costly in terms of dignity and self-respect. Dancing through nights of emotional withdrawal, addicts of approval learn terrible choreography of need. Each step follows patterns written in desperation, double-checking messages, analyzing every word for hidden meanings, desperately seeking signs of incoming validation. The world shrinks until it fits in notification alerts and reaction counts, while real connections wither in shadows of artificial highs. Like any skilled pusher, they understand that consistency would break their power. It's the unpredictability that hooks you, the never knowing when the next hit will come, or how long the withdrawal might last. Continuing the dark narrative, social media platforms transform into marketplaces where validation dealers peddle their digital drugs with scientific precision. Every like becomes a hit, each comment a dose. Notifications the dealers call announcing fresh supply. They've mastered modern addiction's architecture, studying algorithms of human weakness, exploiting dopamine pathways with surgical accuracy. Through screens and status updates, they dispense and withdraw attention like pharmacists of praise, keeping you refreshing feeds and checking messages with trembling fingers. The psychology runs deeper than surface validation. They're programming responses into your neural pathways, creating Pavlovian reactions to their digital presence or absence. Through mazes of manufactured emotions, validation addicts stumble, seeking authentic connection but finding only dealers' manipulation. Each relationship becomes transactional, measured in units of approval rather than genuine understanding. Real intimacy suffocates under weight of performance anxiety, while authentic self-expression dies in shadows of constant people-pleasing. Your personality splits into carefully curated versions, each designed to maximize chances of scoring that next validation hit. The dealer watches this transformation with calculated interest, adjusting their tactics to exploit your evolving vulnerabilities. Beyond gilded cages of approval addiction, freedom waits in shadows of self-acceptance. But breaking free requires facing withdrawal's full force, enduring silence where praise once flowed, surviving emptiness where validation once filled voids. The dealer's power lies in making you believe their supply is essential for survival. Beneath flickering lights of deception, fools dance their complicated choreography of lies. Watch them spin their webs of deceit, constructing elaborate mazes of manipulation when a straight path would serve just fine. Their tricks require constant maintenance, endless adjustments, perpetual vigilance, exhausting work that reveals the true poverty of their intellect. Like children building sandcastles against rising tides, they scramble to maintain their illusions, never realizing that honesty stands like bedrock, while deception crumbles with each passing wave. The foolishness lies not just in their choice of weapons, but in their failure to recognize that simplicity carries more power than any labyrinth of lies. Behind each carefully constructed deception lurks the shadow of intellectual laziness. These architects of artifice lack the mental fortitude to face reality head-on, choosing instead to hide behind smoke screens of their own making. Their schemes require spreadsheets to track lies told, calendars to manage manipulations, and endless energy spent remembering which version of truth they've sold to whom. In their desperate attempt to appear clever, they reveal their fundamental stupidity. For what could be more foolish than building a house of cards in a world of earthquakes? True intelligence recognizes that honesty, while sometimes harder in the moment, creates foundations that last. Through corridors of their own complexity, these merchants of manipulation stumble over their own cleverness. Every lie requires another to support it. Each deception demands a dozen more to maintain its facade. Like amateur jugglers adding more balls to their act, they inevitably reach the point where everything comes crashing down. The truly intelligent mind understands that honesty, while sometimes sharp-edged and uncomfortable, cuts cleaner than any blade of deception. Their elaborate schemes become testament to their limited vision, proving that those who lack the courage for truth resort to the cowardice of complexity. Sunlight pierces shadows of shallow schemes, revealing the intellectual bankruptcy behind each manipulation. Consider how much mental energy these self-proclaimed puppeteers waste on maintaining their illusions, tracking lies like accountants tallying debts, managing deceptions like juggling flaming torches. Their supposed cleverness reveals itself as nothing more than elaborate compensation for fundamental inadequacy. Real intelligence flows like clear water, finding direct paths through obstacles, while their murky machinations meander through unnecessary complexity. These masters of manipulation exhaust themselves trying to appear brilliant, never realizing that true wisdom often wears simple clothes. Between heartbeats of truth and falsehood, genuine intelligence chooses clarity over chaos. Smart people understand that honesty creates its own strength, requiring no elaborate scaffolding of lies to support it. Yet, watch how these orchestrators of deception pride themselves on their supposed cunning, celebrating each successful manipulation as proof of their superior intellect. Their victories ring hollow, built on foundations of sand, requiring constant maintenance to prevent collapse. True brilliance recognizes that the energy spent maintaining deceptions could power genuine achievements, real connections, authentic success. Dancing through mazes of their own making, these architects of artifice reveal their fundamental foolishness. Each elaborate scheme becomes another link in chains binding them to lives of unnecessary complexity. They mistake confusion for cleverness, choosing labyrinthine paths when straight lines would serve better. Smart minds grasp that simplicity carries its own sophistication, that truth, while sometimes uncomfortable, demands less energy than perpetual performance. Their tangled webs of deception become prisons of their own design, requiring constant vigilance to maintain walls that honesty would render unnecessary. These manipulators mistake complexity for cleverness, never grasping that genuine intelligence often manifests in elegant simplicity. Their elaborate deceptions serve as testimony to their intellectual poverty, proving that those who resort to tricks lack the mental resources for authentic achievement. Through ruins of collapsed schemes and fallen facades, truth emerges unscathed. Manipulators exhaust themselves maintaining illusions while the honest conserve energy for genuine growth. These supposed masters of deception reveal themselves as apprentices of idiocy, choosing the most complicated path to reach goals that honesty could achieve directly. Their tricks and treachery stand as evidence not of superior intellect, but of fundamental foolishness. For while they wanted you to beg for scraps of truth, you chose to stand tall in the light of authenticity.